They laughed, said he was just speed with no vision. He will be finished in no time. Kylian Mbappé. He shook up the Champions League for Monaco and went ahead to sign for Paris Saint-Germain in a record-breaking €180 million deal at 18, winning the World Cup at 19. But on December 18, 2022, FIFA World Cup final between Argentina and France, Kylian Mbappé did something unbelievable. Down 2-0, then 2-2, then 3-3. A World Cup final hat trick, the first in 56 years, at just 23.
Mbappé, Thuram, Mbappé! Oh wow! Into the galaxy of greats!
And though France lost, it was Mbappé who left with the golden boot and made the world tremble. By 25, he'd scored 306 goals, more than Messi and Ronaldo at the same age. Then came the dream move to Real Madrid, but soon it turned into a nightmare. El Clasico disasters, offside meltdowns, and a UCL quarter-final exit. He became the prime target, from making memes to booing by fans, to former France player Jérôme Rotin calling him a failure. Kylian Mbappé was bashed publicly, but he did not blink. Because, you see, here's the truth. French legends don't fold, they rise. And now, Mbappé's back, and he's absolutely terrifying. He's showing the world why he's called El Maestro, the exceptional. This is the story of the rise of Mbappé. But before we do, let's rewind a bit. Born on December 20th, 1998 in Bondy, Kylian didn't stumble into football, he was raised in it. His father, Wilfried, coached at AS Bondy. His mother, Faiza, played professional handball in France's top league. This wasn't just a family, it was a breeding ground for champions. His childhood room wasn't filled with toys or cartoon posters, it was a shrine to one man, his idol, Cristiano Ronaldo. Mbappé was obsessed with his every move, studying every finish. Football wasn't just a game to him, it was a mission, and playing for Real Madrid was his fantasy. So, by the age of 6, he was coaching kids older than him, teaching the technical tricks that only experts would know. At 13, when boys were crushing on girls, he was crushing on football, quite literally. He made it to Clairefontaine, an elite academy where the best of France train. Coaches knew within seconds that something about Mbappé was different. His control was impossible. His dribbling was insane. But despite the raw power, he was struggling physically, a skinny kid with wild energy. He was easily overrun by opponents who were twice as big as him. But that did not discourage him. He played with a swagger until one day his biggest fantasy came true. Yes, Real Madrid came knocking. They flew him to Valdebebas, gave him the full tour. Zidane shook his hand. It became clear they wanted him desperately, but Kylian said no. He chose Monaco instead. He wanted more game time than the spotlight. He was hungry to learn and grow, and so he did. And just like that, when he was 16, he was making Ligue 1 history, beating Thierry Henry's record for youngest debut, then youngest goal scorer, then the fastest breakout. But it wasn't until the 2016-17 season that flipped the switch. At 18, Mbappé led Monaco to knock PSG off their throne. The team was prime, with powerful players such as Falco, Bernardo Silva, Fabinho, and oh boy, did he not just knock them out, he smashed it. 26 goals, 14 assists, and a Champions League run no one expected. Goals versus Man City, braces against Dortmund. Europe had no idea what hit them. Soon, Mbappé wasn't just a rising star, getting international eyeballs and praises. He was the superhero of football, the most wanted teenager in football, and the most expensive indeed. Madrid paid €180 million on the table, an astounding transfer fee. PSG matched it. Arsenal, City, Liverpool, they all wanted him. Mbappé hesitated, not because of the money, not because of the pressure. He wanted to build his own empire. So he did the unthinkable and chose Paris. He wanted to win at home and carve his name into French football history. The moment he joined PSG, he owned it. First season, 21 goals, 15 assists, a domestic treble. You remember that front three, right? Neymar, Cavani, Mbappé? It felt so unfair. But here's what most people missed. He wasn't just scoring, he was becoming El Maestro, who wanted it all. So he kept making history with the fastest League One goal ever, in 8 seconds. Won 6 golden boots consistently, netted over 250 PSG goals before turning 25, the youngest to smash 40 Champions League goals. Have you ever seen someone do all that? And this was just the beginning. Then came Russia 2018, the World Cup, France versus Argentina, Mbappé versus Messi. Everyone watched in complete shock as Mbappé exploded at a full-length sprint. Wins a penalty, then scores twice more. In the final versus Croatia, he nets another goal. This was iconic. Only Pelé had done that as a team. Now it was Kylian. 33 goals in one season. Player of the Year. He came home a world champion. But Mbappé wasn't done, not even close. Then in 2022, Qatar, Mbappe's second World Cup. He was a goal-scoring monster with 8 goals to his credit, and a hat trick in the World Cup final. And he still lost to Messi. He cried on that pitch. He wanted to win that badly. Lift that trophy. Meanwhile, back in Paris, the cracks were forming. PSG was becoming hostile and political. Mbappé had clashes with Neymar. He hated the club's limitations. Just when we thought we expected a Madrid move in 2022, he shook the football world once again. He re-signed with PSG, a 2-year contract with more control and power than before. Some called it betrayal, others called it strategy. He continued breaking records, but deep down, something was missing. He knew it, we knew it, because he wanted Europe, the Champions League, the crown jewel, and Paris couldn't deliver it. And so in June 2023, in his letter, Mbappé told PSG, "I'm not extending." The club panicked, froze him out, banished him from the squad. He missed preseason, wasn't allowed to train. Suddenly, their golden boy was their worst enemy. What happened next was the most shocking, and nobody expected it. Saudi Arabia wanted Mbappé. Al Hilal offered a whopping €300 million fee and €1 billion contract for 1 year. That's the kind of money that would have let Mbappe's future generations live without working a single day. The easiest exit in football history. But Mbappé said no without thinking twice. Let's be honest, it was never about money. It was always about Madrid, his fantasy. It was about time. So, by January, he was back in the PSG lineup, but everyone knew. His final chapter in Paris had begun. Scored 43 goals in his last season, and then he left for Real Madrid. But what came next? That wasn't the dream. That was his real test. From golden boy to scapegoat to Real Madrid savior. And so Mbappé finally signed for Los Blancos. The Bernabéu was packed. 80,000 plus fans watched as the golden boy finally arrived at the biggest club in the world. But then it all went wrong. The excitement gone in weeks. The confidence destroyed in months. The dream, well, it was beginning to look more like a nightmare. Because this wasn't PSG anymore. At PSG, he could do whatever he wanted. At PSG, he was the king. At PSG, he had the freedom, the power, and the team built around him. But at Real Madrid, no one cares who you were yesterday. If you don't perform, you're going to get eaten alive by the fans. In his first months in Spain, Mbappé was barely recognizable. Catching him offside became a genuine game plan. And it started in El Clásico, as Barcelona trapped him offside 8 times in a single match. That was 47% of his offsides for the entire season so far, the worst record ever in one game. He looked lost. The kid who once tore defenses apart for fun now couldn't even time a run. Then came the first, a crucial miss against Getafe, then another in the Champions League against Liverpool. His goals simply dried up. Sure, he had a few, but this was Kylian Mbappé we're talking about here. The guy who walked into Madrid saying he wanted 50 goals in his first season. The guy who was supposed to be unstoppable, but he wasn't. He looked uncomfortable, isolated, out of sync with the rest of the team. You see, Carlo Ancelotti was playing him as a number 9, but that's not where he wanted to be. Mbappé's best work came from the left, but that spot rightfully locked down by Vinicius Jr. Just within a few months, social media turned on him. Headlines like, "Madrid made a mistake. He's overrated. A league gun merchant." The memes were brutal, the mood was darker, and so, before he knew it, Mbappé stopped smiling. He stopped being himself. But if you thought that was the worst of it, just wait. The off-pitch chaos was only getting started, because just when he needed time out of the firing line, more disaster erupted. His legal battle with PSG exploded into public view. While struggling on the pitch, off the pitch, he was still fighting PSG over unpaid wages. Reports claim the club owed him over 100 million euros in loyalty bonuses and image rights that were never fulfilled. Then, just when it seemed like the walls were closing in on him, everything changed. Because if there's one thing about Kylian Mbappé, it's this. You can doubt him, you can criticize him, you can mock him, but you can't stop him. And so, slowly but surely, something started to click. Vinicius Jr., Jude Bellingham, and Mbappé, they started to find rhythm together. The climax happened in January 2025. Real Madrid versus Valladolid, a must-win game. Mbappé scored a hat-trick. The player we'd watched for years was back with a bang. Blistering pace, deadly finishing, unstoppable confidence. This was the Mbappé Spain had been waiting for. But could he do it again? Or was it a one-time act? The answer came just weeks later, the real moment to prove he was back. The second leg against Manchester City in February 2025, and once again, Mbappé smashed the most unbelievable hat trick. 3 world-class moments. Let's talk about it, because those were pure magic moments. First one was a cold lob over Ederson in the opening minutes. Then he sat Guardiola down, twisted his ankles with a sharp cut, and blasted it home. And finally, step-overs against Phil Foden of all people, before cutting inside, left foot finish, boom, game over. The Bernabéu didn't just erupt, it shook. For the first time since arriving, he wasn't just a Madrid player, he was Madrid's hero. He was El Maestro. That's all for now, but we would love your thoughts. Will it get better, or is this transfer still a mistake? Which one was your favorite Mbappé goal ever? Let us know what you guys think in the comments down below. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel so you don't miss any more amazing football videos.